Arthur remembered it clearly, the moment he once held the title of king. He had been powerful, revered, and undefeated. But in this strange new existence, everything had changed. A voice echoed from a forgotten life, urging him to seek the light, in the life that had just begun. That was when he first saw the faces of Alice and Reynolds. They claimed to be his parents. The man even called himself Reynolds, his father, and asked the baby to say, "Dada." Arthur was confused. He didn't know them, yet they spoke to him as if they loved him deeply. As days passed, a bizarre truth unraveled. Arthur hadn't died. He had been reborn. Despite his warrior's spirit, he now found himself helpless, imprisoned, in a baby's body, reduced to involuntary reflexes. The once mighty king was now a gurgling infant. Every coo and cry seemed like torment, yet Alice and Reynolds adored him. They bathed him in love, comfort, and warmth. Arthur, still sharp-minded, despite his state, observed his surroundings with growing intensity. He noticed weapons were legally owned, hinting at a dangerous world. This pushed him to a familiar instinct: seek power. He began to adapt. With time, he gained control over his limbs and quietly explored the house. He discovered books, his only usable weapon. From them, he learned about the continent of Decathan, which held 3 main kingdoms: the dwarven Darv kingdom, the elven Elenoir kingdom, and the human Sapin kingdom, where he now lived. Unlike the war-driven monarchies of his past life, the kingdoms here passed down power through bloodlines. But the reason this world lacked advanced technology became clear: magic. A source of energy called mana governed much of life, and only 1 in 100 people could use it. Arthur learned that mana usage divided into 2 forms: augmentation, which enhanced the body, and conjuring, which manipulated the world externally. Mana control depended on forming a mana core, a concept similar to the Kai center he had mastered in his former life. He began attempting to channel mana even as a toddler. Despite his focus, his body betrayed him often. Diapers needed changing, instincts kicked in. But he pressed on, frustrated and determined. 2 years passed. Reynolds and Alice continued to raise Arthur with immense care. Yet Alice noted something strange. Arthur had never smiled. He was clearly intelligent and curious, already showing signs of strength beyond his age. But there was a disconnect she couldn't understand. Reynolds, a strong augmenter, tried to bond with Arthur through training, though Alice objected to handing their toddler a sword. Arthur silently assessed their relationship and suspected the household may be matriarchal, or maybe his father was just henpecked. Trips to the town provided Arthur with invaluable insights. He observed magic firsthand and noted the craftsmanship of weapons and tools foreign to his previous life. Despite longing for freedom, he began to appreciate the warmth of family, something entirely alien to his past existence. One day, Alice softly acknowledged that she knew Arthur snuck into the study to read. She admired his curiosity, but expressed a mother's quiet wish for him to live a peaceful, safe life. That warmth touched something deep in Arthur, something unfamiliar. He continued developing his mana core, moving the fragments throughout his body, gradually growing stronger. But when he attempted to push his limits, a mistake caused panic. His parents found him unconscious but unhurt. The fear in their eyes struck him. Arthur realized, perhaps for the first time, what it truly meant to be loved. He had read about family, seen it from afar in his past life, but never felt it. The tears of his parents weren't weakness. They were proof of a bond deeper than duty. As Alice and Reynolds cradled him, he finally spoke the words, "Mama, Dada." And in that moment, Arthur began to understand the strange, unfamiliar emotion blooming inside him. Despite being an emissary, the man had conspired against the king's life, a crime that, by law, warranted immediate execution. However, the council had granted him unexpected mercy. Instead of execution, he and his family would be escorted back to their homeland to await sentencing. The emissary acknowledged his guilt and admitted that he had indeed attempted to harm the king. He pleaded desperately for the lives of his wife and child, insisting they were innocent and did not deserve to suffer for his crime. Facing the king, he begged for clemency, saying that returning home would be a fate worse than death for them, one he alone deserved. A court official dismissed the plea, asserting that the king's judgment had already been passed. The king, seen as a guiding light, had shown what true mercy looked like. The family had been spared from suffering itself. Elsewhere, Arthur was training. He hesitated, noting the power of the weapon he wielded and his own physical limitations. But he was encouraged to attack, and he gave it his all. He sought approval, asking if his father had seen how well he did. Arthur knew he couldn't reclaim the past, but he was determined to rise to the top. Later, a discussion arose about Arthur's training. One parent suggested finding a proper mentor, recognizing Arthur's extraordinary talent. The other opposed the idea, holding on to the promise of training him personally and not wanting to send him far away. Their debate revealed their conflicting desires. One focused on Arthur's future, the other rooted in their present attachment to him. Eventually, a compromise was suggested. They could all go together. Arthur was introduced to the Twin Horns, an adventuring party that his parents, Reynolds and Alice, had once belonged to. He met several members, including Adam Crench, Angela Rose, Durden Walker, Jasmine Flamesworth, and Helen Shard, all of whom greeted him warmly. Their journey to a city called Cyrus began. Arthur noted that although the transportation was primitive compared to his past life, it had a certain charm. He analyzed the group's composition, 3 augmenters and 2 conjurers, and realized he needed to grow stronger to match them. During the trip, Alice used her emitter healing magic discreetly, knowing its rarity made her a potential target. Arthur thanked her as she treated an injury, and soon after, Reynolds was asked if Arthur could train with someone before bedtime. Reynolds agreed, but warned that it likely wouldn't be a simple session. Arthur, despite being only 4, fought impressively. His opponent struggled to keep up and questioned how such a small child could possess such power. Arthur's parents were shocked by his strength. While some thought the training had been too intense, Arthur remained eager to push his limits. As time passed, Arthur continued learning and forming bonds with his party. Jasmine, who rarely warmed to others, gave him a gift for his birthday, showing that she had taken a liking to him. Arthur was surprised, but grateful. Suddenly, they were ambushed. The attackers, intending to capture rather than kill, posed a real threat. Despite their powerful allies, they were outnumbered. Reynolds, wounded in the fight, warned Arthur not to reveal his true strength, as it could cause greater problems. Instead, Reynolds ordered Arthur to protect his mother and flee. Arthur, understanding that she was pregnant, accepted the responsibility with determination. As they ran, Arthur realized he was being pursued. He reflected on the nature of karma, how those who take from others often find themselves running from loss. Eventually they found temporary safety, but the danger wasn't over. One of the attackers cornered them, ready to take them down with him. Arthur intervened. In the aftermath, Arthur felt a deep, strange fulfillment. Though he had gained nothing tangible, his heart was full. He finally understood the emotions of the man who had once pleaded for his family's safety, and the meaning behind the tears shed by his parents long ago. The willingness to give one's life for those you love, the relief of saving what could have been lost. Those feelings lingered. He remembered. He was going to be a big brother. That thought alone made everything feel worth it. Then everything went dark. Arthur opened his eyes and asked, "Where am I?" Vil Arthur found something beautiful, something so rare he doubted he'd ever see its like again. When questioned if it was truly extraordinary, he confirmed it was, but feared something wicked was approaching. If nothing changed, the threat was inevitable. He wondered what the threat was and why he was there, but the immediate concern was whether it had provoked him. He was reminded that he had much to learn yet. A voice told him to rest easy, assuring him they were on his side. The figure, Sylvia Arthur, explained he must be famished and urged him to eat to regain his strength soon. Though he was hesitant to move, he was warned it was better not to push his luck. He was reminded to chew carefully. As Arthur ate, he asked about his parents, worried if they were alive. Sylvia, though unable to move far, said her sight extended farther than most. Despite her limitations, she assured him his family had survived and had escaped a few days prior. The relief was overwhelming. Arthur was deeply grateful and introduced himself. When Arthur asked what to do next, Sylvia hinted he already knew the answer. Days passed, and Arthur grew stronger. His wounds healed, but returning home couldn't happen quickly. Sylvia explained their refuge was at the edge of the forest of Elshire, home to beasts and outlaws, yet she was confident she could help him bypass the dangers. She cautioned that creating a breach in space required preparation. Sylvia, a battle-worn and monstrous-looking figure, never spoke much about herself. Though her appearance was frightening enough to freeze Arthur in awe, she showed kindness, gentleness, and patience. She noticed Arthur had already formed a mana core at a young age, and asked if he'd tried gathering mana while using magic simultaneously. Arthur had no idea that was possible, since humans often thought of mana gathering and usage as separate acts. Sylvia explained non-humans and mana beasts could intuitively do both, like refueling a plane mid-air. She offered to teach him. Arthur eagerly accepted, but was then questioned about his intent with such power. He admitted he wanted to be stronger than ever to kill anyone who threatened what he cared about most. Sylvia rejected this outlook, refusing to teach someone with such a wicked look. She asked if Arthur derived pleasure from killing enemies, as that was how she had become the most powerful king. Arthur was taken aback. Sylvia softened, apologizing for her harshness, explaining her hands could be both destructive and gentle. She asked Arthur which he preferred. He chose gentle. Sylvia warned that rage and hatred only fueled violence, which destroyed everything and left nothing but hate behind. She didn't want the life she saved to be wasted on such destructive desires. Arthur felt as if Sylvia saw right through him, knowing his true self. She pressed again on his plans once stronger. He answered firmly he would protect those he cared about. At that moment, King Grey arrived, greeted with mixed respect and skepticism. Though he was king in name, Parliament held the real power. The nation was resource-starved, birth rates were declining, and the king's role was mostly as a war agent, a killing machine. King Grey was praised for bringing wealth and glory through battle victories, but when asked why he had come, he said he was done. Meanwhile, Sylvia reminded Arthur to gather mana while using it, warning not to rush and to control it. She acknowledged her own lack of blessings, but desired control and victory above all else. Suddenly, Arthur noticed someone resembling Sylvia approaching. He was impressed she had been found so easily, tracking her by the scent of blood. When invited to come along, Arthur refused. Sylvia had hoped to avoid violence, but understood if it was necessary. Warnings were exchanged, both sides aware of the dangers of using such power. Arthur expressed he didn't mind dying, having been happy for long enough, though he wished happiness could have lasted. In the ensuing conflict, Arthur demonstrated his powers, transforming enough to be recognized. As a dragon, what humans called them, time was short, and the exit was farther than hoped. But Sylvia had taught Arthur all he needed to survive. Before parting, Sylvia gave Arthur precious gifts wrapped in a feather, telling him everything would be revealed in time and urging him to trust her. Though she could have sent him home immediately, she admitted she had stalled because she enjoyed living with Arthur and wasn't ready for it to end. Arthur vowed to protect Sylvia, despite knowing his powers couldn't save her. From what was coming, the inevitability of their fate was clear. and promises made could not alter it. Despite his shock, Arthur's gratitude and the time spent with Sylvia had changed him. He realized he didn't mind if she was a dragon or a monster. She was family. He cared deeply for her. Sylvia was already like a mother to him, or even a grandmother, a fact he asked her to repeat. Their bond was undeniable, though Sylvia hesitated, feeling unable to continue. Arthur pleaded with her to come with him, but Sylvia, settling down after years of struggle, was struck by a seemingly minor but lethal blow. Arthur administered what was needed to end her suffering and thanked her for all she had taught him. She reminded Arthur to remember everything and that he would be all right. Though sad, Sylvia explained that they reflected the sorrow of the world and must transform it into joy. Arthur doubted he could do that yet, but Sylvia believed in him, urging him to take small steps and promising he was capable. She reminded him not to let hatred and rage consume him, to let his new life be filled with light and worth saving. In a final, heartfelt moment, Arthur promised to try, honoring Sylvia's faith in him. The slavers, sensing they were being watched, prepared to move. One commented on how much a young elf girl could sell for, prompting another to confirm she'd fetch a high price. As they hurried to leave the forest, their leader reminded them not to damage the captives. They'd be less valuable if hurt. Sylvia, somewhere nearby, observed the slavers and the captured elf girl. Disappointed by a failed attempt to rescue the girl, she refused to mentor someone who let rage cloud their judgment. Still, she decided to track the slavers to the nearest human settlement. She suspected the elf might not survive the journey, unharmed. As the slavers grew more careless, one of them decided to quiet the captives, fearing they'd attract beasts. Their fears were justified. Forest hounds lurked nearby, surprisingly obedient to the humans, likely due to magic. Sylvia noted she could use that to her advantage. One by one, the guards began to fall, picked off by a mysterious child mage. The slavers were shocked by the child's power. One of them saw potential profit in capturing him alive, calling him a golden egg. But the child wasn't to be underestimated. He demonstrated precise control and quick reflexes, dodging attacks, and turning the tide with powerful magic. As one slaver grew frustrated, threatening the child and offering to sell his corpse instead, the child responded with cold precision. The battle ended with the child victorious, having defeated the slavers. The elf girl, Tessia, was freed. She was clearly shaken. The child, Arthur, reassured her and tended to her injured arm. When asked about the fate of the slavers, he vaguely explained they had met an unfortunate accident. As they talked, Tessia begged not to be left behind. Though reluctant, Arthur realized he couldn't abandon a child in the forest, especially one who didn't even know which way she came from. Arthur, unsure how to deal with the forest hounds used by the slavers, debated whether to release them. Tessia insisted they be freed. It was the elven way to protect all life. Arthur agreed, releasing the beasts peacefully. As they travelled, Arthur asked for her name. She introduced herself as Tessia Erelith and asked for his in return. He offered food, encouraging her to eat to regain strength. Despite the unappetizing, jerky, Tessia appreciated the gesture. Curious, Tessia asked why Arthur was in the forest of Elsha. He explained he had been separated from his family. She related, having gotten lost while chasing bugs. She spoke fondly of her home in Elenoir, describing her caretakers and the fun she had with them, despite her busy parents. The two bonded during their journey. Tessia showed Arthur a glowing insect used by elves to mark paths and offered him one. He declined, amused by how much it resembled a fancy earring. She then shared her dream of becoming a powerful mage and training under a master once her mana awakened. Arthur, meanwhile, reflected on their situation and noticed signs of a forest golem nearby, a creature he likely should have eliminated earlier. He told Tessia to rest in the tent while he stood guard. Left alone, he pondered Sylvia's gift and why she had entrusted it to him. Later, Tessia hesitantly asked if it was okay to sleep beside him, admitting that her grandfather had told her not to sleep near boys, but she was scared. Arthur reassured her, insisting on keeping watch outside. She finally agreed but made him promise not to leave her alone. That night, Tessia asked if human men were truly perverted, as her grandfather had said. Arthur laughed, explaining that only certain aristocrats had multiple wives, and teased that elves probably had their share of perverts too. She admitted she didn't really understand what a pervert was. Arthur noted how comfortable Tessia had become around him, her trauma seemingly buried. While he was slightly annoyed that he had to postpone his search for his family, he accepted the situation. Then, something unexpected happened. An intense pain surged from his mana core. Tessia, concerned, offered to find herbs to help, but Arthur warned her it was dangerous. As the attacks worsened and the pain intensified, he struggled to hide it. Tessia returned with mushrooms, apologizing for not finding herbs, and offered them instead. She explained they were popular in her homeland, though perhaps too strong for men. That night, she shared stories of bedtime tales from Eleanor, adventures about the human and dwarf kingdoms. Despite her desire to explore the world, she admitted that fear of outsiders, especially humans, kept her people isolated. As Arthur lay in pain, she tried to comfort him and proposed calling him Art like a friend would. He agreed, jokingly responding in an exaggerated, courtly tone. Tessia playfully mocked him back, teasing that he was the crybaby who couldn't sleep alone. Soon after, they neared Tessia's home. She announced with joy that they had arrived, urging Arthur to trust her as she led the way.